The three pale moons hung in the unfamiliar sky, casting ghostly light across the frozen landscape. Kira huddled against the remains of her spacecraft, clutching Fluff tighter to her chest. The small creature, a strange blend of kitten, puppy, and bear cub with soft blue fur, nuzzled against her, seeking warmth that Kira could no longer provide. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered, her orange-spotted skin growing paler by the minute. "I don't think we're going home this time." The bitter cold bit through her explorer's suit, now torn and inadequate against the planet's merciless winter. Her breath formed crystalline clouds that dissipated quickly in the howling wind. Above her, unknown constellations twinkled indifferently in the vast blackness. Kira had been mapping uncharted territories at the edge of Lyrian space when her navigation system malfunctioned, pulling her ship through an unidentified wormhole. The crash landing had destroyed her emergency beacon. No one knew where she was. No one was coming. She stroked Fluff's soft head, feeling the creature's small body tremble. At least they weren't alone. At least they had each other in these final moments. Her silver hair whipped around her face, and her bright blue eyes, once filled with the wonder of exploration, now grew heavy with exhaustion. "Just sleep," she murmured to herself as much as to Fluff. "It won't hurt. We'll just sleep." The cold was becoming almost comfortable now, a dangerous sign. Kira knew hypothermia was setting in, but she no longer had the strength to fight it. Her alien physiology, adapted to the warm twin suns of Lyria, was failing rapidly in this frozen wasteland. As consciousness began to slip away, her mind drifted to memories of home. Floating cities bathed in golden light, the spicy scent of seasonal blooms, her parents' warm embraces. A tear froze on her cheek before it could fall. Through half-closed eyes, she thought she saw a dark figure approaching through the whirling snow. A hallucination, surely, her dying brain's final comfort. The shadow grew larger, more defined. Kira blinked slowly, struggling to focus. No, not a hallucination. Someone was coming. Humanoid in shape, but encased in a sealed environmental suit, the figure trudged determinately through knee-deep snow. She tried to call out, but her voice was lost to the wind. She tried to raise her arm, but her limbs refused to respond. All she could do was watch as the figure drew closer, a strange mix of fear and desperate hope fluttering in her chest. The last thing Kira remembered before darkness claimed her was the feeling of strong arms lifting her and Fluff from the snow. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Warmth. That was the first sensation that registered when Kira regained consciousness. Not the biting, burning heat of exposure, but genuine, life-giving warmth that seeped into her frozen bones. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against dim, artificial light. She was lying on a padded surface inside what appeared to be a small emergency shelter. Thick, insulated walls kept the howling storm at bay, though she could still hear its furious assault outside. "Fluff!" The word croaked from her parched throat as panic seized her. Where was her companion? A soft chirrup answered her, and relief flooded through her body as the small, blue creature bounded onto her chest, nuzzling her face enthusiastically. Fluff seemed unharmed, perhaps even energetic. It was only then that Kira noticed they weren't alone. The figure she'd glimpsed before losing consciousness stood at a small console across the shelter, still suited up, though the helmet had been removed to reveal a human male with close-cropped dark hair and weather-beaten features. A human. Kira had heard of them, of course. Their species was known to spacefaring races through trading encounters, but she'd never met one. This far from established routes, encountering any sentient being was unlikely. A human, even more so. When he turned and noticed her conscious state, his expression shifted from concentration to something Kira couldn't quite interpret. Relief? Concern? Human facial expressions were unfamiliar to her. "You're awake," he said. His voice was deep, roughened perhaps by the cold. Kira tried to respond, but her words came out in her native Lyrian. The human frowned, then reached for a device at his belt, a rudimentary translator. He spoke into it, and after a delay, stilted words emerged in approximate Lyrian. Safe now. Storm. Shelter. Kira nodded slowly to indicate understanding. She gestured to herself. Kira. Then to her pet. Fluff. The human placed a hand on his chest. Jack. Lieutenant Reynolds. Scout mission. He seemed to struggle with how much to share, then added through the translator, broke protocol. Should report finding you. Didn't. Kira understood the implication. This human had risked something to save her rather than following standard procedures for encountering non-human species. She wasn't familiar with human military protocols, but the tension in his posture told her enough. Thank you, she said simply, hoping the translator would convey her genuine gratitude. Jack nodded, then turned back to the console, checking readouts that flickered with ominous red warnings. Through gestures and broken translated phrases, he explained that a major storm was approaching, far worse than the current weather. The emergency shelter wouldn't withstand it. Must move, he said, pointing to a map displayed on the small screen. Stronger facility. 6 kilometers. Kira struggled to sit up, her muscles protesting the movement. Jack quickly moved to her side, offering support with strong, steady hands. The touch was strange, 5-fingered hands instead of her 4-digit ones. But the care behind the gesture was universal. Can you walk? He asked through the translator. Kira nodded, though she wasn't entirely certain. She would have to try. Jack helped her to her feet, and when her knees buckled, he caught her effortlessly. Rest more, he said firmly. Storm. 8 hours. Then we go. She didn't have the strength to argue. As she settled back onto the padded surface, Jack brought her a container of water and what appeared to be emergency rations. The food was bland and clearly formulated for human consumption, but it was nourishing. While she ate, Jack busied himself with preparations. He repaired a tear in her suit as best he could and produced a thermal underlay that would provide additional protection. Kira watched him work, studying his movements, the efficiency of his actions. There was something compelling about his focus, his determination. When he noticed her watching, he paused and attempted another translated exchange. Through broken phrases and gestures, they shared basic information. Kira explained about her navigation malfunction and the wormhole. Jack revealed he was on a solo reconnaissance mission, mapping this sector for potential resources. Why help? Kira asked, genuinely curious. Risk for you. Jack seemed to consider his answer carefully before responding. Right thing, he said simply, though his expression suggested more complex thoughts behind the words. Hours passed as they prepared for their journey. The storm outside intensified, rattling the shelter's framework. Jack's instruments beeped with increasing urgency, and his expression grew more concerned. Storm accelerating, he announced eventually. Must go now. He helped Kira into the reinforced thermal gear, making sure every seal was secure. For Fluff, he ingeniously modified a storage container with ventilation holes and padding, creating a protected carrying case that Kira could strap to her back. Before they ventured outside, Jack gripped Kira's shoulders gently and looked directly into her eyes. Stay close, he said, the translator unable to capture the intensity in his voice. Together, Kira nodded, understanding the sentiment perfectly. The moment they stepped outside, the full fury of the storm assaulted them. Wind, like ice daggers, tore at their suits, and visibility was reduced to mere meters. Jack attached a tether between them and took the lead, his environmental suit more robust against the elements than Kira's patched gear. They trudged through snow that sometimes reached their waists, each step requiring enormous effort. Jack frequently turned to check on Kira, offering his arm for support when the terrain became particularly treacherous. An hour into their journey, with the stronger facility still kilometers away, disaster struck. The ground beneath them shuddered, and a massive shape burst from beneath the snow ahead. The creature towered above them, a behemoth of crystalline scales and razor-sharp appendages that glinted like ice sculptures in the storm's fury. Frost Titan, Jack shouted, the translator barely audible above the wind. Don't move. The creature swiveled what appeared to be a sensory organ toward them, clearly disturbed by their presence in its territory. Jack slowly reached for a weapon at his side, but Kira placed a restraining hand on his arm. Through the translator, she quickly explained heat signatures, attracted to rapid movement and energy discharges. Jack seemed to understand. Together, they stood motionless as the creature inspected them from a distance. Agonizing minutes passed. Kira could feel the cold seeping through her suit again, but she remained still, barely breathing. Beside her, Jack was equally motionless, though she could sense the tension radiating from him, ready to protect her if necessary. Eventually, perhaps deciding they weren't worth the effort in the storm, the Frost Titans sank back beneath the snow with a ground-shaking rumble. They waited several minutes more before continuing, now giving the area a wide berth. The encounter had cost them valuable time and energy. Kira was beginning to stumble more frequently, the cold sapping her strength despite the thermal gear. Without warning, Jack stopped and turned to her. Before she could question him, he swept her into his arms, carrying her with surprising ease despite the difficult conditions. "Conserve energy," he said through the translator. "I carry." Too exhausted to protest, Kira allowed herself to be carried, her arms wrapped around his neck for stability. She could feel the steady rhythm of his breathing, the unwavering determination in his stride. Fluff chirruped contentedly from the carrying case, seemingly unbothered by the storm or their precarious situation. They continued this way for another hour, Jack refusing to stop despite what must have been extraordinary exertion. Finally, through the swirling snow, a dark shape emerged, larger and more solid than the surrounding terrain. "Facility," Jack confirmed, new energy in his voice. The structure was a research outpost of some kind, considerably more substantial than the emergency shelter. Jack coded in an entry sequence, and massive doors slid open just enough to allow them passage before sealing shut against the storm. Inside, emergency lighting activated automatically, revealing a large, well-equipped space designed for extended habitation. The sudden silence after the storm's constant roar was almost disorienting. Jack gently set Kira down on a seating platform before removing his helmet and outer suit. He quickly moved to the outpost's control panel, activating environmental systems that soon filled the space with blessed warmth. As the feeling returned to her extremities, Kira removed her own outer gear and released Fluff from the carrying case. The little creature immediately began exploring their new surroundings with curious chirps. "We'll be safe here," Jack said, the indoor translator system functioning much better than the portable device. "The facility is designed to withstand extreme conditions." Kira nodded gratefully, though her attention was caught by a concerning detail Jack had missed, a hairline fracture running along one of the structural supports near the ceiling. When she pointed it out, Jack's expression grew serious. "That could be problematic when the storm reaches its peak," he acknowledged after examining it. "The pressure differential might widen it." They spent the next hours working together to reinforce the damaged area. Jack possessed the physical strength and knowledge of the facility's construction, while Kira contributed technical insights from her experience with spacecraft structural integrity. The work required close coordination, and despite the language barrier, they developed an effective communication system of gestures, expressions, and simple translated phrases. As they worked side by side, Kira became increasingly aware of Jack as more than just a rescuer. She noticed the careful precision of his movements, the thoughtful consideration behind his suggestions, the way his eyes crinkled slightly when he approved of a solution. There was an unexpected gentleness to this human soldier that intrigued her. When they finally completed the repairs, Jack insisted that Kira rest while he prepared a more substantial meal from the outpost supplies. The food was still designed for human consumption, but Jack made efforts to adjust flavors to be more palatable for her. They ate together in comfortable silence, exhaustion making conversation difficult even with the translator. Afterward, Jack showed her to his sleeping quarters where she could truly rest. "Storm peak in 6 hours," he explained. "Should hold now." Kira nodded, gratitude overwhelming her again. "Thank you, Jack, for everything." He seemed momentarily startled by the direct expression of thanks, or perhaps by hearing his name from her lips. A slight color rose to his cheeks as he nodded acknowledgement before leaving her to rest. Sleep claimed her quickly, but not before she reflected on the extraordinary circumstances that had brought her here, from the brink of death to safety, all because of the unexpected compassion of a human stranger. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Kira awoke to the sound of Fluff's excited chirping. The little creature was perched at the edge of her sleeping platform, clearly eager for attention. As consciousness fully returned, Kira became aware of the storm's fury outside, the structure occasionally trembling under particularly violent gusts. She found Jack in the main area, monitoring the storm's progress on the facility's systems. He looked up as she entered, offering a small smile that seemed to contain relief. "Repairs holding," he reported. "Storm at 90% of predicted intensity. Another few hours before it starts to abate." Kira nodded, moving to stand beside him at the console. Their shoulders nearly touched as they both studied the readouts, and Kira was suddenly very conscious of his presence, the warmth radiating from him, the steady rhythm of his breathing. With immediate survival no longer their only concern, curiosity began to flourish. Using the facility's improved translation system, they began to share more about their worlds and cultures. Jack accessed the Outpost database, showing Kira images of Earth, its vast oceans, towering mountains, lush forests, and sprawling cities. In return, Kira described Lyria as best she could: the floating cities that drifted among the clouds, the bioluminescent forest that sang at dusk, the great gathering where all Lyrian clans came together once each cycle to share knowledge and celebrate life. "It sounds beautiful," Jack said, genuine interest in his eyes. "So does your Earth," Kira responded, fascinated by the diversity of his homeworld. They discovered surprising commonalities between their species despite obvious biological differences. Both valued exploration, family bonds, and creative expression. Both had developed spacefaring capabilities within a similar time frame, though they had expanded in different directions among the stars. As the hours passed and the storm gradually began to lose intensity, their conversations deepened. Jack revealed more about his mission. He was part of a forward reconnaissance team, working alone to assess potential expansion territories. Kira shared her passion for cartography, explaining how she had volunteered for increasingly remote mapping expeditions, driven by a desire to see what lay beyond known space. "I've always wanted to find what's out there," she admitted. "Even as a child, I would stare at the stars and imagine other worlds, other beings. And now you've found one," Jack said with a slight smile. "Yes," Kira agreed, returning the smile, "though not how I expected." When the storm finally subsided enough to permit movement outside, they discovered a new problem. The facility's exit was completely blocked by accumulated ice and snow. The main doors, designed to slide open horizontally, couldn't overcome the massive drift that had formed against them. "We're effectively trapped until we can clear it," Jack concluded after several attempts to bypass the blockage using the door's hydraulic systems. They spent the next day working together to find solution. The facility had limited excavation equipment, meant for geological sampling rather than massive snow removal. Progress was slow and physically demanding, especially in the continued cold outside the facility. During one particularly frustrating attempt, Jack strained a muscle in his shoulder. Back inside, Kieran noticed his discomfort as he tried to rotate his arm. "You're injured," she observed. Jack dismissed it with a shake of his head. "It's nothing. Just a pull." "Let me," Kira insisted, approaching him. "My people have a healing technique. If you'll permit it." After a moment's hesitation, Jack nodded. Kira guided him to sit and position herself behind him. Gently, she placed her 4-digit hands on his shoulders. "Our bodies generate bioelectrical fields," she explained as her orange-spotted skin began to emit a faint luminescence where it contacted him. "We can adjust these fields to promote healing in others. It's a gift of my species." Jack tensed at first under the unfamiliar sensation, then gradually relaxed as the pain began to ease. Kira worked methodically, moving her hands across his shoulders and upper back, sensing the damaged tissue and encouraging it to heal. "That's remarkable," Jack murmured, clearly experiencing relief. It's something all Lyrians can do, Kira explained, though some are more skilled than others. My mother is a healer by profession. When she had finished, Jack tested his shoulder, rotating it with newfound freedom. Thank you, he said, turning to face her. Their faces were close now, closer than they had been before. Kira became acutely aware of the differences between them. His broader features, the slight stubble on his jaw, the warm brown of his eyes, yet also of a connection that seemed to transcend their physical distinctions. For a moment, neither moved. Then, hesitantly, Jack raised a hand to her face, his fingertips gently tracing the yellow spots that patterned her orange skin. They're beautiful, he said quietly. Like constellations. Kira felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the facility's environmental systems. Without conscious thought, she leaned forward slightly, and Jack mirrored the movement. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, a gesture common to both their species, yet suddenly new and profound in this context. When they separated, both seemed momentarily startled by their own actions. Then Jack smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that Kira found herself returning. In that moment, something fundamentally shifted between them. What had begun as rescue and survival had transformed into something neither had anticipated finding in this remote, frozen world. The next day, they returned to the task of clearing the exit with renewed energy and determination. Working together even more efficiently than before, they finally managed to create a passage large enough to squeeze through. We should prepare supplies, Jack said as they re-entered the facility. Once we leave, we'll need to reach my landing craft. It's about 12 kilometers from here. As he spoke, a notification chimed from his communication device. Jack's expression tensed as he checked the message. It's from my commander, he said, voice suddenly tight. The storm interfered with communications until now. Kira waited, sensing his unease. They detected your crash landing, he continued after a moment. They're sending a retrieval team to investigate. Standard protocol is to... He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with what he needed to say. To capture and interrogate any non-Earth life forms, Kira finished for him, understanding dawning. Your people still fear what they don't understand. Jack didn't deny it. Commander Harris specifically orders me to secure any xenoid I encounter until the team arrives. They're already en route. ETA 16 hours. Xenoid, Kira questioned. Their term, not mine, Jack said, visibly troubled. A classification for non-human sentient species. Silence fell between them as the implications became clear. Jack was facing a critical choice. Follow orders and betray Kira, or defy his command structure and face serious consequences. Kira watched the conflict play across his features. What will you do? She asked quietly. Jack looked at her, his decision evident in his eyes before he spoke. I'm getting you out of here. Moving with renewed urgency, he accessed the facility's database. This outpost has emergency evacuation protocols. There should be. He worked through several security layers before a schematic appeared on the screen. Yes, 2 small escape crafts in a concealed bay beneath the main structure. You'll be labeled a deserter, Kira pointed out. Probably, Jack agreed, not slowing his preparations. But I can't hand you over to Harris. I've seen how xenoid encounters are handled. You'd be treated as a specimen, not a person. He paused, looking directly at her. And I could never do that to you. The sincerity in his voice left no room for doubt. Kira helped him gather supplies and prepare for their escape, something warm and fierce growing in her chest despite the danger of their situation. Jack activated the outpost's emergency protocol, which revealed an access hatch leading to a lower level. There, just as the schematics had indicated, were 2 small escape vessels, little more than cockpits with basic propulsion systems, but capable of reaching orbit. They're designed for atmospheric escape, Jack explained as they transferred their supplies. Not ideal for space travel, but they'll get us away from here. As they completed their preparations, an alert sounded from the facility's perimeter sensors. They're early, Jack said, checking the readings with alarm. The retrieval team must have pushed their engines hard. Through the outpost's external cameras, They could see a military transport touching down approximately 2 kilometers away. They had minutes at most. "We need a launch now," Jack said urgently. "They'll have the outpost surrounded soon." They hurriedly boarded one of the escape crafts, Fluff secured in a makeshift harness against Kira's chest. The vessel was cramped with both of them, designed primarily for a single occupant, but neither suggested separating. Jack initiated the launch sequence just as the facility's external doors registered an override attempt. The floor above them slid open, revealing a launch tube that led to the surface. "Hold on," Jack warned as the craft's engines powered up. The small vessel shot upward through the tube and burst into the open air above the facility. Almost immediately, alarms blared as the retrieval team detected their launch. "They're pursuing," Jack confirmed, checking the rudimentary sensors. "2 interceptor crafts." Kira moved to take the controls. "Let me," she said with quiet confidence. "Navigation and piloting are my specialty." Jack relinquished the pilot's position without hesitation. Kira quickly familiarized herself with the vessel's systems, then executed a series of maneuvers that took them skimming along a mountain range, using the terrain to partially mask their signature. The interceptors followed, gaining ground with their superior engines. Kira spotted a dense asteroid field in near orbit and headed directly for it. "That's extremely dangerous," Jack cautioned, though without suggesting she change course. "So is being captured," Kira replied, her focus unwavering as she guided their craft into the field. What followed was a harrowing game of cat and mouse among the tumbling space rocks. Kira demonstrated extraordinary piloting skills, weaving through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow, using larger asteroids to break pursuit lines, and occasionally doubling back to confuse. Their trackers. One interceptor clipped an asteroid and spun away, damaged, but not destroyed. The second continued the chase with dogged determination until Kira spotted a particularly massive asteroid with a deep fissure running across its surface. "This is going to be close," she warned before diving directly toward the narrow crevice. Their small craft barely fit through the opening. Behind them, the interceptor attempted to follow but misjudged the entry angle. The sickening sound of tearing metal reached them even through the vacuum as the larger vessel's wing sheared off against the rock face. "You did it," Jack said, genuine awe in his voice as they emerged from the other side unscathed. "For now," Kira cautioned, "but this craft has limited range. We need a proper ship." Jack checked their position against the navigation system. "There's a trading outpost on one of the moons in this system. It's neutral territory. Various species conduct business there. We might be able to find transport." They set course for the outpost, their small craft straining to maintain speed. By the time they docked at the moon's ramshackle port, the engines were beginning to fail. The trading outpost was a hodgepodge of structures built into and around a large crater, populated by a surprising diversity of species. Jack kept his military insignia covered as they moved through the crowds, aware that human military personnel might not be welcome in some quarters. They found a public communication terminal where Kira could check for messages from her homeworld. To her surprise and relief, there was a notice with her identification code. Her family had reported her missing and offered a substantial reward for information on her whereabouts. "I can contact them," she realized. "They could send a ship." "Would they?" Jack hesitated. "Would they accept me coming with you?" Kira took his hand, her 4 digits intertwining with his 5 in a gesture that felt entirely natural now. "My people don't share your military's view of other species. You saved my life. They would welcome you." She sent a carefully worded message, requesting extraction for herself, Fluff, and a human companion who had provided vital assistance. She asked specifically for assurances of Jack's safety and acceptance. "Now we wait," she said after the message was sent. "It could be several days before they reach us." They found modest accommodations in the outpost, a small room that offered privacy, if not luxury. There, away from the immediate danger of pursuit, they had time to truly explore the connection that had formed between them. "I never expected this," Jack admitted as they lay together, Fluff curled contentedly at their feet. "When I found you in the snow, I was just doing what seemed right. I had no idea that you would become a deserter with an alien fugitive. Kira teased gently. That I would find someone who makes me question everything I thought I knew, he corrected, his fingers tracing the patterns on her skin with reverence. Someone who feels like home, even though we're from world apart. Perhaps that's what all these explorations were really about, Kira suggested. Not just mapping unknown territories, but finding where we truly belong. Who we belong with. Jack's expression grew momentarily serious. I don't know what happens next. Your world is unfamiliar to me. I'm leaving behind everything I've known. We'll face it together, Kira assured him. Whatever comes next, we're family now. You, me, and Fluff. Family, Jack repeated, as though testing the word. Then he smiled. Yes, that's exactly what we are. 3 days later, a response arrived from Lyria. Kira's parents had dispatched a ship immediately upon receiving her message. They assured her that her human companion would be welcomed and protected under Lyrian law. The following day, as they waited at the docking bay, Jack grew tense as a large vessel approached. Unlike human military ships, the Lyrian craft was elegant and organic in design, almost like a living entity as it gracefully descended to the landing pad. That's a Lyrian ship? Jack asked, clearly impressed. Yes, Kira confirmed, squeezing his hand reassuringly. My family's personal transport. When the boarding ramp extended, 2 Lyrians emerged, both with the same orange-spotted skin as Kira, though one had deeper blue eyes and the other had silver hair decorated with intricate woven patterns. Her parents. Kira stepped forward first, exchanging the traditional Lyrian greeting, a gentle touching of foreheads, with each of them. Then, with obvious pride, she turned to introduce Jack. Her parents regarded the human with open curiosity rather than suspicion. Her father extended his 4-digit hand in what Kira recognized as an attempt at a human greeting. We welcome you, Jack of Earth, he said in careful, accented English. Our daughter has told us how you save her life at great personal cost. Our home is now your home. Jack accepted the handshake, visibly moved by the acceptance. Thank you, sir. Your daughter saved me too, in more ways than she knows. Kira's mother stepped forward then, placing a hand gently on Jack's cheek in a maternal gesture that transcended species. Then we are already family, she said simply. As they boarded the Lyrian vessel together, Jack paused to look back at the trading outpost, his last connection to human space. Kira stood beside him, understanding the significance of the moment. Second thoughts? She asked softly. Jack shook his head, turning to her with certainty in his eyes. No, just saying goodbye to one life before embracing another. He smiled, taking her hand once more. Lead the way home. Aboard the ship, as they prepared for departure, Jack discovered that the Lyrians were more familiar with humans than he had assumed. Trade connections had been established with Earth through intermediary merchants for several decades, though diplomatic relations remained limited. You may even visit your Earth one day, Kira's father mentioned as they entered Lyrian space. Though perhaps not while you're still considered a deserter by your military. I'm in no hurry, Jack admitted, watching the stars streak by from the observation deck, his arm around Kira's shoulders. I have a whole new world to discover first. Fluff chirruped in agreement from his perch nearby, his blue fur glowing softly in the starlight. Kira leaned into Jack's embrace, reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them together. From the brink of death on a frozen planet to the beginning of a new life together. A journey that began with a simple act of compassion in the face of an alien's desperate need. What are you thinking? Jack asked, noticing her contemplative expression. I'm thinking about that moment when I thought I was going to die, Kira replied. How I hugged Fluff, ready to freeze to death, until a human appeared and saved us both. She looked up at him, her blue eyes reflecting the stars, and how that human became the most important person in my universe. Jack's arms tightened around her, and in that embrace was a promise of exploration, discovery, challenges, and joy, all to be faced together as they charted the uncharted territories of a life shared across the stars.